Matrix is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark.
Hello, today I'm talking with Marie Chaker, a longtime Wall Street Journal journalist whose own story became headline-worthy. After more than 2 decades of reporting, she made an unexpected pivot into the world of professional bodybuilding. That journey led to a viral article and her new book, Lift: How Women Can Reclaim Their Physical Power and Transform Their Lives. We talk about strength, identity, and why women are long overdue for a new relationship with their bodies. I have to tell you, this book is amazing. It's one of the best books I've read in a long time. So I'm really, really excited about this one. So Anne-Marie, it's so great to reconnect. We had you at our show with us in the spring, and you're just around the corner from us here in DC. So thanks for coming to our new studio.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and just excited to dig in because I think your background is really interesting and your message through this book is really powerful. It's what has really resonated to me. I've been buying the book for everybody. I bought it for my mom, my aunts. I bought it for all the women on the team. And
That's so awesome.
Yeah, I just really, really love it. So let's start a little bit, right? Your background, though, coming from the Wall Street Journal. And how did that maybe journalistic curiosity lead you to writing Lift and to the world of competitive bodybuilding and all of that? They're kind of two different worlds, right?
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
I know. I guess the journey started at a point in my life where everything was kind of crashing, as it does when, it's life. I was dealing with postpartum depression and the loss of my father, died suddenly of a heart attack, and the end of my marriage, and it all kind of happened within weeks of each other. And I'd never been much of a drinker, but I started, just a half a glass of wine before going to bed just to be able to sleep, and that grew into more and more, and I was drinking too much. And all of this kind of came to a head when I took my daughters on a trip. We were staying at a hotel, and there was this, dinky hotel fitness room in there. And in this fitness room, I saw another mom who was just like crushing her workout. And she looked incredible. I felt like I looked terrible.
At least you got motivated to go.
I was
right.
I was just gonna poke my head. I didn't even know what was. I hadn't been in a gym in a really long time, and she was just. It was this combination of her, superhero physique, her muscles bulging, and her know-how. And I went up to her and I was just like, "What's your deal? What are you, a CrossFitter? What's your story?" And she said, no, I do bikini competitions. And I almost laughed because I thought that was so, what is that, like a beauty contest thing or what? She said, no, it's the world of bodybuilding, and I compete, and I have a coach, and I track macros, and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, wow, so I got the name of her coach. I was really interested in, getting some help for, I didn't know what I was doing. And that's where the journey started. I reached out to her coach and kind of got on a sort of fitness and wellness track, and ended up competing as a bodybuilder a year and a half after that, and wrote a story about that experience, which ran in the Wall Street Journal. And that story went viral and ended up leading to this book deal with Penguin Random House. And the book is really kind of a deep dive into the history of skinny and what the heck, what happened was this whole experience of building more muscle, eating to fuel growth, building muscle was so different from everything I had chased in the past. I was always trying to be less and trying to lose weight and burning calories, and just like, what the heck is this skinny story, and why is it this thing that we're always trying to chase, when it seemed so clear to me that the answer was in the moreness of muscle. And my life got better when I started trying to build more of myself. And so that's what the book is about. It's this exploration of why we're all chasing the wrong thing, and how there's this wonderful world in building oneself, and here's why it's so important.
So you just said so many things that I want to unpack, but I'll just sort of encapsulate because from the book, right? So you've met this woman who was a helper, right? Sometimes women necessarily are too competitive. And so I think that, right, is an important differentiator of what sort of drew you to this. In a year and a half, you went from like barely sticking your head into the gym to being on stage, right? Like phenomenal. But that even you talk about alcohol and the driver there, right? And I think so often, and you touch on this in the book, that let's just have a glass of wine to relax, and what that can lead to is, you know, so many unhealthy choices and more. So for you to embrace that transition is truly amazing, and where you've gone from there. And so part of it, though, is your background, right, with Wall Street Journal. I mean, that's a no-nonsense publication. And so you've learned a lot about storytelling in that. And so I think that might be why I'm so drawn, because I'm drawn to the Wall Street Journal and I'm drawn to your book, right? So the similarities there. But between sort of your storytelling skills, do you think that some of that translate to your strength training skills? Is there anything relatable there?
You know, everything is story, right? I've always lived in story. And I think what draws people to my story is it's kind of, I guess it's a hero's journey, right? And we've all kind of been at these, especially, you know, you and I are about the same age. We hit a point in life where shit gets hard, you know, and it hasn't stopped getting hard since then. That was a low, but I've had other moments of hard, and I don't know, there's finding new hobbies or finding community, sharing your story and connecting with others. And I just, that is like the spice of life to me. And that particular story has resonated with me. But more importantly, I think, you know, strength is something so universal, and it's something that has gotten me out of these ruts at different times in my life. Like, for me, the gym is like this sanctuary. It is the thing, and like, let's face it, like, none of us want to go to the gym, but it's like
there's a few. There's a couple out there that do.
Not me. Like, if you gave me options, like, we could watch a movie, we could like hang out, we could go to a rest. Like, there's a umpteen other things I read, but it's this thing that like I make myself do. And after I come back from a good lift, I feel like I could conquer the world. Like, I come back to my desk, I have this surge of new ideas. I am more confident. I can hear it in my voice. The strength training for me has been kind of part of that story. Like, it's been the thing that I keep coming back to that has, you know, ultimately lifted me out of ruts and made me a better person.
Yeah. You talked about this earlier, right? Is like this skinny thing. And I think one of the things, right, you talk about is, for example, like Victoria's Secret, right, who has swung back and forth on like what is a Victoria's Secret model.
Right.
Things like Ann Taylor Loft, who went to plus sizes and now has come back, right? So I think we as, you know, women and consumers of all of this are almost sort of victims as to, you know, what they all decide, when really the strength and the power is within you to make those choices. That strength is power.
It is this unbelievable thing that, like, until I worked on the book, I had never really noticed. You know, skinny is like, it's like the color of paint on the wall. Like, it's always there, and so much so that you stop noticing it. So, like, I remember there was this time I was pulling my I had these like leggings for my toddler that I was pulling up over her diaper, and they were called, like, the leggings were called like skinnies. And I remember thinking how ridiculous, like, even at like 6 months old, that, like, you know, we're giving this message to this like baby girl that, like, oh, these pants are skinnies. And, you know, you go to a grocery store, you know, what are the names of the cracker? Wheat Thins, Lean Cuisine, skinny
pop.
Jeans, Skinny Pop. It's like everywhere. And the constant message that we get as women is that, like, this is the goal. This is what you have to be. And to be honest, like, even in the health and fitness space, like, you see a lot of it. I think it's starting to change now, but, like, you know, a lot of these studios for a long time communicated the message of, like, lean muscle and, you know, burn, and, you know, like, to burn calories. And it's just like, the message is always there. And And I would like to start seeing like the message of moreness, because I think, what drew me, I'll tell you, there was a piece of research that I became really enamored with, the work of Alison Murray, who's out of Cambridge, who looked at early skeletal bone structure of women, and she found that the focus had always been on like the early men, the Paleolithic men, the Neolithic men, and their bone structure, but nobody had really looked at like the female bone structure. And what she did was she compared those early bones to a group of modern women at Cambridge, and she found that the comparator was, athletic physiques, more sedentary physiques, and she found that the early bone structure was most similar to the rowers with their built upper bodies. And
Former rower, by the way.
are you?
Yes. Yes.
No way,
I
so
rowed in
am I.
college.
Have we talked about this?
I think we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was like, wow, that's so interesting, because to me it spoke that like this whole idea that men were hunters and women were like gathering berries in the field was total bullshit. That like early women were buff. They were like, they had built upper bodies. They were athletes. They were an integral part of the early agricultural story. And that's the OG body. That is the body that we perform best at. That, to me, was the answer as to why I felt so much better in this athletic physique. That once I started working out, everything got better, and it's because that is the body that we were meant to occupy. Not that they weren't sitting around thinking about ways to get thin. They were working.
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? I think as somebody who sits in sort of my chair, imagery really matters. And so we're really, as an organization, really cognizant about that. That's what you talk about, getting more people active, more people healthy. We don't necessarily need somebody with a six-pack of abs on the cover of every report we put out.
Yeah.
And one of the things you talk about,
right.
and actually you'll get a kick out of this, I was with a member of Congress last week who's very fit herself, bragging on your book. And I said, one of the things that I love about your message in there is that just have a goal, write it down, achieve it. And my goal is to have an ab, just one ab. That's all I want. Okay, well, do I need 6 or 8? I'd love it, but like what's achievable for me? And so I love your, have a goal, but we really have to be cognizant of what we're communicating about what healthy really looks like, right?
Oh my God, that is so good. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because something I've been thinking about and writing a lot about lately is that strength is really different from, visible muscularity, right? Or striated muscle is really like, you can see a six-pack when you've got like, you can start to see it on a woman when you've got about 16 to 20% body fat on her. But, that doesn't mean she's stronger than if, you have more body fat on it. You can't see muscle necessarily when it's underneath a healthy layer of body fat. And in fact, you need a surplus of calories in order to build muscle. So I'm always very cautious. Like what you see on the cover of those magazines, that is like very heavily dieted down a look that takes, a lot that needs to be dialed in, but it doesn't necessarily equate to strength. So it's just something that...
Yeah, and it's probably not necessarily healthy consistently, right? You talk about
Right.
that when you get into the bodybuilding mode, right? There's times that you're cutting and times that you're not. So let's jump to
Yeah.
the bodybuilding sort of element
Yeah.
of this, because if I saw you on the street, I don't think I would say that's a bodybuilder, right?
Right.
But you started at the age 50, and then you start competing. It was just in Time and the Daily Beast. Everybody's covering this. But you talk about, you get on stage, you're in a rhinestone bikini, you've got, the fake tan going, all the while with all the things you're talking about. You're navigating premenopause, grief, hormones, all the stuff that women go through. And how has that maybe midlife reinvention, if you will, changed your conversation with readers and listeners on the book?
Yeah, so it was funny when I started working with my coach, just to get healthy and like eat better and started, she was like, you put on muscle really easily. You should consider doing a competition. I was like, no, that's not, like, that's so trashy. Like, what would my mother say? Oh my God. But I decided to do it on a lark. I was like, I'll do it once, what the hell? Like, and maybe I'll do a story
Did you
about
tell people you were doing it?
Did I tell people I guess, yeah, like
Okay.
at some point it's like kind of like it becomes like the central thing in your life. And
Because like my secret is I want to do a stand-up routine sometime, but
Yes.
I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm just going to go do it in case it's a crash and burn situation.
that's really funny.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I don't know. If you're good, I am like kind of I'm hard to, like, it's hard to, for me to keep things in. I'm a blabbermouth, no, but you'll want to, like, especially with it becomes like a central thing in your life. It's hard to like not talk about. But anyway, I fell in love with the whole gestalt. Like, I loved the carnival aspect of these shows and the big hair and the muscle. I fell in love with muscle. That was on a body in my 40s. Like, I had always chased, like, a thin ideal, I guess, just because, like, I didn't have anything else to go on. But when I kind of entered this rabbit hole of like powerlifters and bodybuilders, like sharing images on like this closed Facebook group that we were all on, and it was just like, look at my bicep and like, look at this. And it was like, it was all about like the muscle. And I just love this like wacky, cool world, and the shows are just a lot of fun. It is so antithetical to like the staid sort of world of like newspapering that I had inhabited. And just like people from all walks of life. You had like, soccer moms and like the divorcees who are like looking to get their best post-divorce body. You have like waitresses, red states, blue state. Like, it's like everything in between. I met people I wouldn't have met otherwise, and just really enjoyed, like, you're up on a stage and you're like sexy poses and nobody knows who you are except your number 42 or whatever it is. And I thought it was a kick. And I've always like, I'm competing again this fall, and like, I still enjoy it.
That's amazing. I love it. Well, I got to come see you. So make sure I know about that one. So one of the things you talk about is how muscle is medicine, right? So we just talked about, right, sort of the aesthetics and seeing your muscles pop out. And that is really rewarding, quite honestly, when you're working out and you're like, I do have a tricep. But it's more than that, right? It's about improving your sleep, your bone density, cellular aging, your cognition, all of that. And you encourage women to lift for that reason, and to eat enough to lift.
Yes.
Right? So do you think that readers have reached out with those insights and has maybe given them permission to nourish their bodies and strengthen? And has there been any stories, since the book has come out with people reacting to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important for both men and women to build muscle, but especially for women, because we are susceptible to osteoporosis and osteopenia, and we lose, I think it's 3 to 8% of muscle each year as we get older. Muscle is the ultimate cushion of bone. And on a cellular level, it's the thing that helps us build more bone matter. So for women, and what's so interesting is like we all grew up with this idea, like, I remember in middle school reading like 17 magazine and stuff where it was just like, do high repetitions of low weights because you don't want to get bulky. And I still hear this like, oh, but I don't want to get too bulky. It's horseshit. Like, you don't have the amount of testosterone. It is impossible for you to get quote unquote bulky as women. You just don't have the hormonal makeup in order to be able to do that. So, super important for women not to fear lifting heavy weights. It's good for you. It's good for you physically, but it's also so good for the mind. There are countless studies in that book about the impact of weight training on memory, on, as we age, falls are like the number one reason older people end up in hospital. So there's just longevity reasons, memory, depression. There's tons of studies on the impact of weight training on depression. So many, many, many reasons why women shouldn't fear strength training.
Even cancer prevention now,
Cancer prevention.
right?
Yeah.
Things that we never would have thought were even possible probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We're smarter now.
Yeah.
So there's been some amazing people that have endorsed the book, right? And your efforts here. So Mel Robbins, right? He calls it a game changer, inspiring, practical, and packed with wisdom. Billie Jean King called it an impassioned guide. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, one of the founding fathers, I would argue, of our industry, said that it will open your eyes about physical strength. So I hope that you feel pretty cool about that and what those legends mean, saying that. How have maybe messages like that made you think about this work and the time that you're putting in?
Oh my God, the Arnold quote was funny because I was hustling Arnold and his people because I really wanted to interview him for the book. My father was such a fan. My father, who was an immigrant, for him, Arnold Schwarzenegger was like the ultimate, American success story. And I just couldn't get him for the book. But finally, I was for the endorsement. I finally heard back from his people, and it came with there was terminates. There was like terminates.
Oh,
and then there was like, I am so pumped, and I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. And then so I called his. I was like, did he really say that? And he was like, he totally read it to me and like totally said it. So I was just like, I mean, they're all like great endorsements, but the Arnold one I thought was just the bomb.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Pump you up. And right. And Terminator. That's so funny. So what has maybe surprised you the most about the way that Lift is actually being used as a tool, conversation starter, maybe even a catalyst for women's empowerment through their health journey?
I mean, it's funny. This writing a book is such an internal kind of exercise, kind of a painful exercise. It requires like.
How long did it take you to write the book?
4 years,
Yeah.
4.5 years, yeah. And it's really hard. You have to kind of seclude yourself for long periods of time, weekends, and you're kind of like in this thing, and you're just trying to like get to the finish line with it, and you never think that like. I mean, like, this is going to sound so stupid, but you never think about, like, wow, it's going to be out there and people are going to read it. And, like, there's just so many, like, the first time you see the book cover, and then, like, the first time you get, like, a message from someone who's read the book and they're, like, in, Kansas or something. And it's just, like, such a wild experience. And I'm so touched when people tell me that like it's really helped them. It makes the whole, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it really does make the whole thing worthwhile. And I hope it adds to women's understanding of like the way they feel about their bodies. And, this is the messages that we've gotten and here's why. And like, if we feel a certain way, it's not our fault. It's really not our fault. It's like society has like been pummeling these messages in it, but there is a way forward. And I really think it's in our inherent makeup to be strong. Like we are strong, badass creatures. Like we are athletes, inherent athletes. We, multitask. Our bodies are amazing. We bring life into the world. Like we're incredible. And so I really want women to feel like this is your birthright, to find your strength, be your strength, and work on your strength. It'll do so much good for you.
Yeah, you talk in there about the C-suite, and 94% of women that are in the C-suite level are former athletes.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about how people have grown up and been determined and committed to things. I think that's really powerful. Let me ask you a little bit about speak of women and of moms. Mm-hmm. And so what have you learned about sort of the research on your book and the things that have come out about sort of mothering? And I mean, we're both moms. We've talked a lot about that and what our kids do with their time and your sort of high level takeaways for a healthy lifestyle around lifting for your kids.
It's hard. I mean, and I'm in this place right now where my oldest one is just started high school. My little one, is a pistol, and she's 10, and they
My
need.
middle one just got his first tattoo this weekend. So
No.
yeah, so we're trying to get our heads around that.
Wow.
So
That's for a whole other show.
yeah.
But motherhood is interesting because it's like there's a sort of like a more I've got this under control kind of period, and now it's like they need me more. High school it's early start time. There's a lot of like drama and like so. It's I don't know, being an athlete, I guess, like it gives me more stamina for being able to handle this stuff. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not. But I just feel like with my training, I just kind of have this confidence that like I can handle stuff in a way that like before I don't know, I just felt like things would make me feel like I was underwater. So, I think as women, we think of self-care as like something that, it has to be like a relaxing, like a massage or like getting your nails done or like Calgon, take me away. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. But self-care can also be like, go to the freaking gym and lift some heavy weights and like get grunt and get sweaty and like do that for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be like hours on end, but do that for 30 minutes and then like come home and like feel like, yeah, man, I could kick some ass. Like I can do anything. And it's a really powerful thing that I encourage women not to fear.
Stray from, yeah. And I think, and if you look at sort of the studies of what it does for kids, right, it makes them better communicators. It teaches them stuff like how to look people in the eye when you're shaking hand, how to manage aggression. So many things that I think maybe haven't gone necessarily with notice. But if you sort of dig down a little deeper of what people that are being active and healthy, how much more capable they are on all those social skills is really fascinating.
And it doesn't even have to be like this, gotta go to the gym and like do this. Like even taking a walk with your kid. I mean, there's all this like fascinating research that like, if you're talking face to face with a kid or any person, like that can feel different, maybe sometimes even confrontational than if you're like, hey, let's just take a walk, kiddo. And like you're walking in nature and like, maybe you have the dog with you and you're just like conversing and like moving. It just like gives opportunity to open up in a way that like you can't, is just harder otherwise. So there's just like all this powerful stuff to movement. It doesn't have to be like an Olympic feat. It can just be a little bit of movement, a little bit of outdoor, just a great way to connect.
I know, you'd be surprised how much I've learned about boyfriends, girlfriends. Just when exactly you're out walking the dog. Mm-hmm. So when you look at Lift, right, it started as a book, but I really feel that it's becoming a movement almost. So if you looked at it through that lens, what do you think comes next for you? Do you think there's a second book? Do you think there's a fitness program or something else totally different? You going back to the Wall Street Journal?
No, I don't think that's happening. But I've got some tricks up my sleeve. A couple things I'm not ready to talk about yet, but
we'll get that on version 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But very excited about them.
Good. So in closing out here, final question. I think that it's what kind of advice would you give to maybe yourself, a younger version of yourself, when you walked into the very first gym and really not knowing about almost this entirely second life that you've sort of recreated with a sort of stronger, louder, more confident self? What was waiting on the other side of that barbell?
I guess it's keep going. Don't despair. Nothing's ever perfect. Lord knows it's still not perfect. I've got, a 10-year-old who refuses to sleep. She, afraid of the dark, eating junk food. I mean, it's just like a million and one things. And most times I'm just like happy to find pants. Your commitment to yourself is the thing that will carry yourself through. And shit gets hard, and reach out. Don't be afraid of talking to people. I find that people, especially in this environment, it's easy to despair. But I really think like humans are good. We we help each other out, we connect. And honestly, like from that first moment in the gym, I guess it was because I'm a journalist and I wasn't afraid to reach out and like talk to this woman. Maybe in some way it was like, you know, a way for me to reach out for help. You know, I was not in a good way. So I guess that would be like, you know, keep going and don't be afraid to talk to people. Keep talking to each other.
Yep.
Community is so important. And I'm so grateful to be here. And this is such a great association. So
well, thank you. I'm honored to do what I do and have the team that I have and the members I have and people like you that inspire me every day. So it's a pretty amazing job to wake up to. And I think just the thing I would add is that you said don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to, and then on the other side, don't be afraid to be a helper, right?
Yeah.
I mean, help those that ask, reach the people up, ask questions, because you just never know what people are going through.
Oh my
and maybe
God.
just be kind. Can we add some kindness to it?
Yes, yeah. You said something at the beginning I wanted to come back to, which was, I can't remember how, but you were like, you know, as women, sometimes we like.
Oh, we're a little competitive with each other sometimes.
Right.
Depending, yeah.
But you know what I've started doing is, as I've noticed more women coming into the gym, I've kind of like started becoming like the weirdo at the gym who like reaches out to other women and be like, hey, like, what you doing? Like, I'm Anne Marie, and like, nice to meet you. Are you new? And and it's just like, it's not weird. You're like kind of showing like, hey, there's more of us here too, and don't be afraid to be that weirdo.
Yeah. I love it. Well, with that, Anne Marie, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so much fun. Keep doing what you're doing. You're an inspiration, you're a good friend, and can't wait to see what's next.
Thanks, Liz.
Yep.
Matrix is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark. With over 20 years as a dedicated supporter of the fitness industry, we're thrilled to continue a partnership geared towards success for all those who believe in better.